Okay, before I go on to point 4, I'd like to just note just to kind of add to something from the previous video. I haven't worked out the implications of this, so I'm not going to go about articulating anything here as to what I think may be going on or what may be happening or what dynamic we're dealing with. But I do find it very interesting that on the one hand, Orthodox will say that person is more than nature. I heard that a lot as an Orthodox Christian. I would see that a lot on various blogs too, especially Perry Robinson's blog, Energetic Procession. Person is more than nature. So person entails nature. The persons have a nature. The persons enhypostatize the divine nature. They are modes or instances of the divine nature. But they're also more than just the nature. So in a sense, they transcend the nature. Yet, when you consider the Eastern Fathers' response to Eunomius, St. Gregory of Nyssa argues that in another sense, the essence is actually higher than, in a sense, more transcendent than the persons. Why? Because the essence cannot have the terms caused or uncaused, either one, predicated of it. It transcends any notion of causation or uncausation. Whereas the Father is uncaused, and the Son and Spirit are eternally caused. So that's just some food for thought. I'm not saying there's necessarily anything intrinsically contradictory about it. I'd have to think about it depending on how they qualify their arguments. Okay, so going on to this fourth argument, which has to do with hypostatic causation. Actually, this video and the next one will bear directly on that, but I want to divide them up into two videos because they really deserve an explication of their own. In my debate on my channel here, in the comments with Jonathan Hill under my video about Jonathan Hill's perspective on the Trinity, we got into a little bit I objected that even though Orthodoxy doesn't claim that the Father alone is energetically causing the Son and Holy Spirit, since the energies belong to the nature and cannot be predicated of a single person. In other words, an energy is not a hypostatic property, so it cannot be predicated of any single person. In spite of the fact that the Orthodox Church takes that view, They are perfectly fine talking as though the Father actually does something, as though he acts, as if he performs an act or an action. We say that he spirated the Holy Spirit from all eternity. We say that he caused the Spirit to proceed from himself from all eternity. We say that he begat the Son from all eternity, or generated the Son from all eternity. And then to put even more emphasis on the notion that the Father is actually doing something, we go on to emphasize the fact that the Son and the Spirit are distinct one from another. They're not the same person. And therefore we have to lay emphasis on the fact, we have to stress the fact that there really are in existence two different modes of causation, two different modes of operation, two very different hypostatic properties that separate or distinguish the two persons one from the other. But then to turn around and deny that the Father is energetically doing anything in order to remain consistent with the Church's teaching that energies belong to the nature and not to persons per se, is just as silly as if they were to say that there are energies that belong to one person or another and not the others. Because by turning around and denying that the Father actually does anything, you've just walked back the entire doctrine of hypostatic causation. And you've said, well, everything we said about what the Father does doesn't actually mean anything. Or if it does, we don't know what that is. So we're just going to call it a mystery and call it a day. Really? So you're going to say that this is an extremely important doctrine, without which we would end up in false teaching, from which we could never recover without it, but then claim that if we say anything positive about it, we're going to be in big trouble, so we're going to walk the whole thing back and pretend that we didn't really say what we just said. Because no one has literally gone out of their way to explain what it is to be spirated as opposed to being generated. If there's no positive difference, then I fail to see how causation exists on any level, conceptually, notionally. I mean, you are positing, you are making an ontological claim, and then claiming that we can't explain what it is ontologically without falling into heresy. The best I've ever heard from anyone on this, and it's still a non-answer, is to say, well, the Father was the Father from all eternity because he had a Son from all eternity, and the Son is eternal because he's always had a Father. But because sons derive from fathers on earth in time, even though that's not literally the case in the Godhead, the analogy still applies somehow. the Son still, in some sense, derives from the Father hypostatically. Even though the Father didn't actually do anything, nobody actually did anything, and the three persons have existed side by side, co-equally from all eternity. So, I think this is a big cop-out. I really do. That's all I have to say about that one. Let's start the next one in video. I think that's going to be video 5 is the next one.